Thanks for clicking. Canada's real estate market is turning a corner. This according to the Canadian Real Estate Association's release of June's housing data. Yeah, while the CREA has cut its forecast for the remainder of 2025, again, arguing that although the 2025 market was delayed due to economic uncertainty, it says that barring any shocks, activity could resurface in the summer and fall. And it's not just the CREA calling for a housing recovery come fall, with RoyalLePage releasing a new forecast on the exact same day, saying that the recovery has been delayed until fall, and broker idol Rob McClister saying that since the expert professionals, like RoyalLePage, have trouble forecasting the market, then don't be so sure that you mere mortals will be able to predict when is the best time to buy. Yeah, wait till you get a load of this thing. But what all three of these reports have in common is that they reveal an industry that is flailing, albeit with a stunning amount of apparent coordination, grasping at straws for any hint of a real estate rebound. So what I want to do today is go over Canada's real estate data for the month of June, take a look at the reports from the CREA, RoyalLePage, and the Financial Post, and then discuss some implications. The Bank of Canada is set to make its interest rate announcement in 2 weeks' time, along with a press conference held thereafter, and we'll obviously have an update out on both on this channel. Make sure you click like and subscribe to get those updates, but for now, let's get into this data. Onto the data. First up, the benchmark price. That's the price of a home that represents the most popular set of features, which did fall in June. Canada's benchmark in May was $690,200, and that fell to $688,600 in June, down about $25,000 since this point in time last year. So we have the benchmark price falling a little over $1,500 last month, or as argued by the CREA famed economist Sean Cathcart.
Which is good because it means sales were up again. It means prices held steady again as opposed to falling like they did earlier in the year.
That narrative isn't exactly matching the data, which made me think back. How does Cathcart usually describe small changes in the benchmark price?
Guess what happened in November? Prices went up. The MLS Home Price Index increased by 0.6% month over month. That's not nothing. That's more than 0.5% in a month.
And when Cathcart made those comments, this is how it was reported in the media. Prices up, CBC, prices up most in 16 months, Bloomberg, prices rise amid falling rates. Though the problem back then, as we reported back then, was that rates weren't exactly falling. And the other problem, not known by us at the time, was that while the CREA was reporting a $4,200 increase in the benchmark price, by today's date, that number has been revised, and that increase was only $1,900, which made me wonder how many other reported price increases have been revised down, and I had that old data from back in December on hand, so I copied it into today's data, and we can see that there has been a lot of downward revisions on the part of the Canadian Real Estate Association.
I hadn't noticed.
But that's really neither here nor there for right now, so let's follow the media's lead and completely ignore that fact. But the point is how quickly the narrative can change. A 4K increase, even though it was actually 2K, is not nothing, but a $1,500 decrease, well, that's prices stabilizing. And that's not the only place where the narrative is disconnected from the reality, with the CREA telling us that the good news is that while tariff uncertainty drove buyers to the sidelines, the markets appear to be entering their long-expected recovery phase, fueled by pent-up demand, lower interest rates, and an economy that is expected to avoid the worst-case tariff scenarios. Which, I mean, similar to back in December, interest rates are not lower. Even before Tuesday's inflation read, bond yields were at their highest point since the beginning of January. Further, yesterday's hotter-than-expected inflation read slammed the door on any potential rate cuts coming from the Bank of Canada anytime soon. And does anyone really believe that the tariff uncertainty that the CREA admits drove buyers to the sidelines is really behind us?
Next week.
So there are all sorts of reports with what the CREA is saying, what it reports, how it reports, and how those reports get propagated throughout the media. In the RoyalLePage report, as mentioned, it released on the exact same day, says almost the exact same thing. Economic uncertainty kept buyers on the sidelines, recovery pushed out to the fall. And the similarities between the two reports go on. Watch this sleight of hand. Although the election, tariffs, and international conflict pushed buyers out of the market, borrowing costs are stable and inventory is building, laying the foundation for a strong fall. Did you see what they did? They laid out the problems for the slow market that we saw in the spring, and then didn't address how any of those problems have changed. Because the main problem, the Trump tariffs, hasn't changed. If anything, it's reemerged. The Iranian problem was, 2 or 3 weeks? And even post-election, the real estate market was still awful. And then the report says that we now have solutions to different problems. Interest rates, which we don't. So we're all set, and the media eats it right up. So very similar to the CREA, acknowledge a problem that we had, tariffs, and move on to a different solution, interest rates, which aren't even the case. Does this look like interest rates are any better than they were during the spring market?
I don't know what that.
Which brings me to the broker hero himself, Rob McClister, who says that it might be an error for the average person to try to time the market, as even the experts like RoyalLePage get it wrong, finding that the forecasts from RoyalLePage have been wrong by about 7.8% on average. So, because RoyalLePage, who has an interest in maintaining the perception that prices are forever going up, consistently gets it wrong in their forecast, that means that the average person should not bet their life savings on timing the market.
You're not smart enough.
What's this guy like when he comes home from a car dealership?
Salesman said satisfaction guaranteed.
And it gets even better. To further the point that buyers shouldn't try to time the market, McClister takes the journalistic leap of contacting the subject of the article, RoyalLePage Director of Research, Elise Allegretti, tell us that it's even more difficult for the average Canadians to predict the market than the pros. As such, says McClister, don't try to time the market, as waiting for the market bottom can lead to missed opportunities. So, to summarize, since RoyalLePage, who told young people to take a look at variable rate mortgages in 2021, said in January of 22 that the spring 22 market was going to see continued price growth, back when inflation was sitting at 4.7 and even the village idiot knew what the Bank of Canada was going to do given what was going on with the money supply, predicted that we'd be heading back to pandemic peak pricing in 2024, and then said that Toronto would have an average price of 1.2 million in 2025, off by about 100,000 or so, a prediction made after the Trump tariff threat started to materialize. That's who McClister goes to make the point that even the pros get it wrong so often.
This is the best computer in the world and always will be, right?
Now, McClister does present evidence that even CMHC gets it wrong, but he even admits that he only has data from 2020 to 2024, and I would add to that that data is going to be skewed by the big, giant, colossal screw-up at the beginning of the pandemic. But McClister isn't entirely wrong. Buyers shouldn't try to time the market. But it's not because the experts who so genuinely try to provide accurate predictions get it so wrong so often.
They're the best in their class.
They shouldn't try to time the market because A, it's the biggest purchase of their life, and B, as we've seen, the vast majority of the experts propagated throughout the media all have an interest in the outcome. So, looking at these three reports today, the industry is flailing. A lot of the underlying arguments for them pushing back their forecast to fall of 2025 don't even make any sense. Have tariffs gone away and rates stabilized? No. If anything, on Tuesday's inflation data, rates are heading up on the inflation caused by those tariffs. One of the main worries that kept people out of the spring market, beyond prices, was that these tariffs would bring about inflation, resulting in higher interest rates. And that's exactly what's happening, and the experts are trying a magic trick. They're trying misdirection. They're trying to ignore all the problems that are continuing to materialize, the stuff we can see in the data right now, and telling us that interest rates are stable, so the fall market is when it's going to boom. With that said, who knows, any number of things could happen. Maybe the Trump tariffs will completely go away and he'll never speak of them again.
Maybe.
We will obviously continue to track how this all plays out on this channel. Make sure you click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, thanks so much for watching.